That's the time you can play it well, and that's what we did. So after 2005, when we saw that market was still growing, and we got the money from IPO, within 3 months we set up 500 branches. And that was the fast expansion phase, that we had. So we are setting up almost 4 or 5 branches in a day. And I mean, that was a breakneck pace. But when we are convinced that, okay, we have the capital to set up so many branches, and there's an opportunity, that's what we did. So originally we thought that those branches will sell insurance also, or insurance will be the key product. But actually, because market was still doing very well, broking became the key product in these branches. And in 2010, 11, 12, 13, until 14, we also shut down some of these branches, but we expanded branches in NBFC business. We shut down the broking because a lot of business has shifted to online, and also it happens through call center. And obviously these years were not great years for broking, 2008 to 2014. So we did well in retail business till 2007. And the next phase for growth was to get into institutional business and wealth management businesses. That again is driven by people, and those people were working with foreign banks or large organizations like ICICI Bank or Kotak Bank, and players like this. So we realized that it's very difficult for us to attract them because we can't pay them salary enough to match what they're getting. We can't give them security of job and a brand name which can match. But then, we were keen to do that, and then we realized that what can work is equity. So there are many entrepreneurs who are very reluctant to share equity because they think that this is, their perspiration, their hard work. I mean, it's just the way you look at it. So there are many people say, I put in foundation, of course, it's your hard work, but you laid the foundation stone. The building has been made by several workers. So, I mean, it's a question of how you look at it. So we, at least me, my colleague, Venkat, key promoters, we thought that, okay, we'll share the equity very generously, and we gave away 15% of equity. And 2 of us had about 30% equity at that point in time of our own. And attracted the best team. Because for them, it became a wealth creation opportunity. And same thing we did with our wealth business also, where we gave them almost a quarter of a company that was set up for this purpose. Now, they get a larger canvas of a listed company and a balance sheet, and then there are people who know the business, so they can scale up the business. So these things have been pretty successful because we have become #1 broker in our institutional business with FIs and mutual fund amongst all the local brokers. Even in wealth management today, with about 67,000 crores of assets under advice, we would be one of the leading players. But it became a partnership that we got the people, gave them full autonomy, and gave them a significant equity, which has tremendous value today, rather than just trying to fight the established players on salary or bonuses. So I think mistakes are, many times people get frustrated, why did I do this? But not to make a mistake is like you have a divine revelation that what will happen tomorrow. Because today I can do something in good faith. Like supposing you invest in an equity mutual fund in good faith, that stock markets are doing well, India is a shining story. Tomorrow something happens to the government, to Mr. Modi, or to anybody for that matter. So nobody can forecast it today, or something happens globally. Any accident can happen. So we must understand that many times what we call mistakes are decisions taken in good faith, and the outcome has not been favorable. So I think, one shouldn't get, at least, that's what we try to do. Don't get disheartened or frustrated with this. In fact, all the mistakes that I made till now were not the only mistakes. There are a lot more mistakes that we're going to make in future. But only thing is that how quickly you recover, and what kind of humility you have to accept and say that, okay, we'll do something else, or we'll try to correct them as soon as possible. So we expanded into, we got our institutional business right, we got our wealth business, and then we wanted to set up subsidiary companies all over the world. So we got a broking card, and we set up our subsidiary company in Singapore. We were the first foreign broker in Sri Lanka, when Sri Lanka got out of war, and several other countries. But maybe 2008 to 2011, the timing was wrong. And businesses were going down globally, and these subsidiaries started making a lot of losses. So in 2012-13, we took a tough decision. We surrendered our stake in Sri Lanka. We got out of that market. We surrendered our broking card in Singapore also. We wrote off those losses. And all other international subsidiaries, we cut them down, we shrank them. So today we have, but they are much smaller than what we had planned. And also we gave up the plan to become a global broker, but we thought we'll focus only on India. If you have to, many times people ask that, if you're a successful entrepreneur, is your educational background or is your intellect useful? I think, it is not relevant much. And if you are highly educated, people like me who are professionally educated, then you start with some disadvantage, in fact, because you have too much of self-confidence or complacency or feeling that you are too good. It doesn't work. And most of the times I have seen that good entrepreneurs are those who have good people skill. What it does, it allows them to get good people on board, and it also allows them to connect with the customer much better. And it allows them to keep their eyes open and see that what is good, what is right, and what is working, and what is not working. And I've seen, some of my earlier classmates were brilliant in terms of academics, in terms of whatever they performed in IIM or even before in CA or IITs. But they still could not succeed because a lot of ego, a lot of self-centricity that was there. There are people who are not highly educated, and there are so many of large business houses that you can look around, whether it's Mr. Anil Agarwal of Sterlite, or there are so many of them. But they are brilliant in understanding people, so they hire the best people, they understand environment, they understand what government's mood is, and how the market works. And in fact, they are far, far more successful than me or anybody else here for that matter. So I think what is more important for an entrepreneur is ability to connect with people and your social skills. Now I started with saying that it's all about money. Honey, as an entrepreneur, that's important. See, we must understand that language has a limitation because every word and every phrase in a context can have a different meaning. But once you become a successful entrepreneur and once you become a successful business enterprise, then it doesn't matter how much money you have made. And you can have crores of people below you or thousands of people above you or lakhs of people who are doing better. And the greed can have no end. But I think if you have done something well, and of course business has to survive by making profit and by being cash flow surplus, then it really doesn't matter how much money you have made. And I would just like to conclude with that. Thank you. Yeah.
Nirmal, first question here hai. One of your first slides said, vision is 80% hindsight and 20% foresight. Give us a couple of examples of how that worked for you. Why do people overstate the importance of vision?
Yeah, as I said that 20 years ago when we started, today I can say that I had a vision of making financial services powerhouse. But that's not the truth. Because when we started as thinking that we'll become a good information services company or a boutique consulting firm. Then we thought, okay, we'll become a media house on online media and just give all information free on website and generate income by way of advertisement or subscription. So it kept changing every day. So when you talk about vision, it's not that in 1995, I said, okay, I'm going to make financial services powerhouse, and I started like this. So there are many people who say that, okay, we should, I don't know, in many textbooks you'll hear that, write down your vision, write down your strategy, write down your goal. But in real life, things don't work that way. So, there are many people who will set target, okay, I want to have 5,000 customers, I want to have 10,000 customers. That may be good just for a direction. But I don't think one should get bogged down by this, by saying that if I have not achieved, then there's something wrong. And if I achieved, then my goal is over. Or, whatever businesses you are doing. So, I don't want to overemphasize vision. I got into business and became an entrepreneur. That time I did not have any idea at all that how big the company will become, whether this will get listed, whether this will do, like wealth management business which we started in 2007. When I started in 1995, I did not have any wealth, so I did not know that there's a business of managing other people's wealth on a larger scale. So in fact, so obviously there's no vision or no thought that I had. So I think even today, I don't know how this company will take shape in next 10 years. I mean, if you ask me what's your vision for 10 years, I can say something, but not that if that doesn't happen, I'll feel unhappy, or if that happens, I'll feel very thrilled about it. I mean, you have to take things as they come.
Now, what is the...
The key point here is that all of us cannot foresee future. But I think we have to move in one direction, and when we see certain more things, then we have to adapt and we have to change.
Okay. Now, when significant events take place in your environment, there are two things to be done. Either you decide to stay the course, or you decide to make course correction. In your case, from whatever we've learned about you from your presentation, you made quite a few course corrections. You made significant changes. You made leaps. So, with all your wisdom and experience, which is better, staying the course or making significant changes?
So first thing, as an entrepreneur, to survive, because this world, this nature has survivalship bias. You know, the dinosaurs could not survive, but cockroaches survive. So there are, once you survive, then you automatically multiply. So I think we take a significant course correction if that is required to survive. But as I said, that at least we never lost hope or faith in financial services as a business opportunity. So if you see our entire evolution, we remain focused around that core. And so it's up to the circumstances of every individual. If it requires you to make significant course corrections, you have to make significant course corrections. I mean, but the key is that survival instinct is very important, that I don't want to run out of business. I don't want to have a situation where my expenditure is more than my income. That's the key thing. So if it's falling short, I cut down my expenditure, I try and get new sources of income, but I somehow manage to be in business and not get into debt or losses. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Nirmal. Now I'd like to welcome Vishal Dhawan, who is the CEO of Plan Ahead Wealth Advisors. He'll speak to us on how to get wealthy clients. Vishal is a practicing CFP and has a rich experience of over 15 years in the financial services. Over to you.
When I came in here, I was actually told that we're running 15 minutes late. We're now about 5 minutes late, so that gives me hopefully 10 minutes extra time to speak. So after this fantastic session on entrepreneurship, I think, I've been told to talk about how one gets about getting wealthy clients. And I think the challenge with an how-to presentation is that there are many, many ways to do the same thing. So therefore, what I'm going to do is I'm going to focus on what I think is the way we do it. I'm sure there are many, many better ways to do it, and there are many, many other ways to do it. So I'm just going to try to, in these 35 minutes, give you a sense on how we go about doing it. The first challenge, and I discussed this with Prem quite a lot, is defining a wealthy client. Each of us has our own definition of wealthy clients. If you go online and look for wealthy clients, you will find the classical definition saying $1 million excluding primary residence. If you go to a mutual fund registrar, he will tell you maybe 5 lakhs single application. So I think the whole challenge on a presentation of this kind also is being able to define who really is a wealthy client. So I'll tell you how we define wealthy clients in our business, and each of you all can pick it up in your own way. So the first thing we talk about is wealthy by assets. These are essentially clients who have investable assets over 1 crore, which basically means that it takes out any asset which they're not willing to do anything with. Now, these could be either their primary home, or the way we look at it in India a lot of times is even their second and third houses are something that they will never come out of. So for us, those are not investable assets. The second thing we look at is wealthy by income, which is essentially what's the kind of income that they continue to earn. And we found that 36 lakhs per annum at today's cost is typically a good level for a city like Bombay. Now, of course, again, in different cities, this number could vary, but this is our definition again. The third is wealthy by inheritance. And these are people who hope to inherit money. These are not people who've already inherited it, because if they've already inherited it, they would have been in the first category, which is wealthy by assets. So these are people who have the potential to inherit money, but the challenge with potential is that there's a gap between potential and reality. So one of the questions that we kind of debate internally quite a lot is that, why is your wealthy by assets 1 crore and why is your wealthy by inheritance 3 crores? Because what we've discovered over a period of time is that when you are expecting to inherit something, you aren't really thinking that much about it. But when you actually inherit it, you might decide that you don't need an advisor at all. So there has to be something else that you have to ask for from this person, which is for your patience, and that's 3 times the size of the wallet. The fourth category, which I didn't put in here, was of course wealthy by marriage. Some people do get it that way, but that in our view would be in one of those 3 categories. I think one of the most important things to look at is that wealthy clients need to be understood. And I'm just going to show you a small video demonstrating this. Could we go back?
Solitaire for your wife.
इससे बड़ी वाली दिखाइए.
1 carat diamond. First anniversary?
10th. इससे महंगी वाली रिंग दिखाइए.
10th anniversary. Excellent. What a lucky wife. ये लीजिए. 3 carat diamond. Hearts and arrows cut. So, when is the anniversary, sir?
Yesterday.
Five carat diamond, princess cut.
Okay, so let's understand what it really means to deal with wealthy clients. I think one of the big learnings we've had is that wealthy clients think different, expect different. They want you to be able to customize your solution to what they require, just like you saw in that little bit of an advertisement. So let me give you some examples here. Let's say there is a typical retired client. The standard models talk about having less aggressive investment portfolios and more in fixed income oriented cash flow strategies. That's what we've traditionally learned, that's what we talk about. But the moment you're dealing with wealthy clients, you might find that a lot of them are actually not holding that money for themselves, but as custodians for their children, because they've got enough, maybe from a government pension, that's coming in to take care of themselves. And all of a sudden, you find that the asset allocation strategy that you have could be dramatically opposite of what you actually thought you wanted it to be. So a client who needed 30% in equities and 70% in fixed income could actually be needing a 70% in equity and a 30% in fixed income. So very clearly, you need to be able to understand that those standardized solutions don't work for these clients. The second challenge that you see there, and this is the reason why I use the word challenge, is because a lot of how you manage these clients is driven by this. Most of the wealthy today in India are self-made. And therefore, what tends to happen is they think that they can control every outcome, including the outcome of their investment portfolios. Even if they can't control it themselves, they think that they can hire someone who can control it for them. And what that means is that your job becomes so much more difficult, because all the time you're trying to tell him that actually investment portfolio returns are more a function of probability of success than actually about being able to define what you're going to get as a rate of return. Very, very critical. And if you go back to what Uma spoke about earlier this afternoon, I think a lot of the context in which you speak to clients when you realize that they are self-made is that they're used to sacking people who don't deliver to them. And therefore, the challenge when you're dealing with self-made clients is to be able to set their expectations right, because what happens later is that you're going to go back and tell them that, what, I told you this can happen. This is exactly what happened. It's really, really critical, because otherwise what you find is that these clients keep wanting to go away elsewhere because they think they can find someone who can get them a predictable investment outcome. The third thing is they all want solutions. They really do not want any products. We find that there are many, many meetings that we do with clients where the product discussions tend to be less than 2% of the entire meeting. And it's more about discussing what's the solution that they want. Just to give an example, we had a prospective client come in to us 2 days ago saying that My son's school has just introduced an IB education program, and me and my wife have not been comfortable after suddenly hearing that the fees for an IB program is 10 times that for a regular program. And we are trying to figure out what to do. So they obviously had all the numbers, they had done that 10 times number and all of that stuff. And they really came to us, asking us, how do we ensure that we can put our kids through this IB program? And while we didn't give them an answer on how they can invest the money, I think what we gave them as thoughts really was about the fact that the moment you get to an IB program in 6th standard, which is where their son is now, then essentially you have to have enough money to carry them through all the way up to graduation overseas. And therefore the problem is not 10x of fees today, but the problem is going to be the fact that you have to do 10x of fees for the next 6 years, and then probably 50x of fees for the next 4 years after that. Because when you send your kid overseas to study at a graduation level, your costs are many, many multiples. Typically in the US, it will cost you $250,000 for a full program. So obviously this was not about a mutual fund and insurance plan. It was nothing else. It's also really, really critical to focus on the big picture. You find that a lot of the wealthy clients are actually in a phase of their life where in their businesses or in their professions or in their jobs, they actually don't get into the nitty-gritty. And the moment you start talking to them about nitty-gritty forms, applications, what's going to happen, in the next 3 months, this is what happens, I'll send you this, I think they just totally switch off. They want to see the big picture and they want to leave everything else to you. So all of your meetings have to really focus on the big picture, and there's something that you need to do for that, which is you need to be very well prepared for your meeting. So what happens is, for every meeting that anyone in our team runs with clients today, there is about 4 times the amount of time that they spend before the meeting than the amount of time that they spend on the meeting, because what they do is they know all the numbers in those reports upside down, which basically means that they never even open those reports, because they're just using the numbers from the reports in the conversation that they're having with clients, because they want to focus on the big picture. They don't want to delve into saying that, oh, you know what, we have this mutual fund in the portfolio and this is what it's doing. If the client wants to have that discussion, he will bring it up at some point during the meeting. But really, it's about the big picture. They actually dislike salespeople. I think when we deal with wealthy clients, we have a lot of people who call in. I think a lot of us also dislike salespeople. Ask yourself, how many salespeople who call you on the phone do you really nicely speak to? And how many of them are, oh, I'm busy, or don't disturb me, or, I'm going to sue you because I'm in this do not call list. I mean, that's the kind of reactions that you have. So I think even though we have services to sell, very clearly if you understand that people dislike salespeople, you will tailor your process to ensure that you can meet that need. The wealthier you are, the more you hate taxes. So I think one of the big things that you need to focus on in all of your communication is how each of your investing strategies can help you save tax. I think a lot of us know by default that, an expense saved is by default very good. But not a lot of us think about the fact that a tax saved is a sure, short way of making a higher return, as long as the tax remains consistent. So I think, there's a caveat there. But assuming the tax laws remain consistent, what we found is wealthy people love communication, talking about saving taxes. And this is not about ATC and, ATD and all of that. It's about how the investment portfolio can be made more tax efficient. They love process. They love that you can tell them that, this is our first meeting, this is what we are going to do in our first meeting. At the end of this first meeting, this is what you can expect. This is what we'll do 2 weeks later. This is our second meeting. This is what you can expect. This is our investment management team. This is our back office team. This is our service manager. This is our feedback mechanism. They just love to know process because they're always worrying what happens in case something happens to you. And I think the more you can help them understand that you have processes in place, the better it is. And I think we do a lot of this during our investment manager selection anyway. So for example, when you deal with smaller AMCs, you may actually be wondering that what happens if this particular fund manager leaves and goes to this particular fund house. So when we are selecting products, we are actually doing this ourselves as the person who's a consumer. But when we are actually going out as an advisor, we may not actually be following the same process. And I think it's really, really important. Confidentiality, absolutely critical. I mean, all of these guys are paranoid about confidentiality. I think if they ever feel that you are discussing something which about someone else with them, they're actually thinking that is he discussing the same thing about me to someone else? And therefore, everything that you do needs to be able to demonstrate confidentiality. I don't know how many people here have agreements with their clients, but we've actually found that the only clause in our agreement that people come back to us on is actually confidentiality. And we have a one-page confidentiality clause, and it still is the area where all of them spend a lot of time on. So I think all of these clients are very, very focused on that. And last is they like to deal with equals. I think, the whole advisory space is one where people want to deal only with people who they think are like them. So if you're ever in a situation where it seems that you are being dominated upon, then I think you need to understand that something's going wrong in that relationship. Either you haven't positioned yourself right, or you're in a situation today where the client's actually maybe in a different zone where he's not able to understand the value that you can bring. If you can bring it up in any way that you can, do that. But if you can't, I think you need to end it at that point, because there's a real risk that after a while, this relationship is going to end because he's going to believe that this was not ever a relationship of equals. So let's go to what we think the wealthy want from you.